And now we begin our next session. Cookies are here to stay. What it means for marketers.
It's bright.
So bright. Ooh, that is bright.
Thank you, everyone, for attending and joining us. It's my pleasure to be joined by my esteemed panelists. I'm going to let you all introduce myself. My name is Harrison Davies, president of our media activation unit at Zeta Global.
Matt Kaiser, CEO, founder of Live Intent.
Bashir Iqbali, EVP of Data Cloud Acceleration at Zeta Global.
Desiree Chrisman, Head of Media Transformation and Ad Tech at Citi.
Ritu Trivedi, I'm Client President at Mindshare.
So the title of this panel, as you can see, Cookies Are Here to Stay. A few months ago, that title was very different, and we were prepared to have basically the opposite conversation that we're having now. So when Google announced their abandonment of Privacy Sandbox, I heard from my share of marketers and clients, well, it's the status quo. We don't need to worry about this. The can is getting kicked indefinitely, and everything is smooth sailing. So Matt, just frame for us, break that down if you can. Why should marketers care about this?
I think the future of the third-party cookie is uncertain. I think we can all agree that there's the importance is going to be diminished significantly. I think we can also agree that monopolies probably shouldn't be the ones deciding consumer decisions around privacy. So I think it's important both from a consumer perspective, how we interact with from a privacy perspective, but also from a brand perspective, how does engagement work? And I think at the end, what's really going to be important is, can brands build that first-party relationship to work around the loss of third-party cookies. So I think it's still very relevant.
And Ritu, if you can take us back to a few months or a few quarters ago, yourself representing the agency side and all of your clients, how are you preparing for what was then going to be the demise of third-party cookies? How are you preparing your clients? And then even as cookies are remaining in the ecosystem, at least on the Chrome ecosystem, what opportunities do you see for people-based marketing?
Yeah. The preparations have already been happening for a few years, I would say. We've been talking about this demise. It's like the year of mobile, chapter 2. And our clients have been making a lot of investments, whether it comes to technology, privacy, compliance, but also having a lot of conversations internally about educating other stakeholders. So we're staying the course on those things. That's not stopping. We need to continue down that path, because even if Google is changing their stance for now, as Matt said, that is going to happen. And that is the future. So we have to stay the course, and it's a long road. So we need to continue on this journey. In terms of opportunities, it's the holy grail of omni-marketing. It's how we bring owned and paid media together and blend that and really truly be able to do people-based marketing. So for clients that are on this journey, I would say stay the course and let's keep experimenting and let's keep talking the talk and walking the walk, because that's absolutely critical.
Absolutely, and we hear from a lot of clients, they're playing a parallel game where they have one foot in the status quo bucket, one foot in the, well, what if, or in the just mitigation bucket. Bashir, you work on some of these things for Zeta. What are you seeing? What is top of mind now in this new paradigm?
Yeah, I think as Ritu mentioned, I think one of the opportunities is moving beyond the channel-based thinking, planning, and execution to that omni-channel look at from the early prospecting stage all the way to your high LTV customers. So you're stringing together that journey in a people-based marketing and really honing in on your specific measurement methodologies. Because I think every business is different, and you got to nail down that people-based measurement, so then you can manage your owned and paid media in a continuous way and make sure that the consumers are having a collected experience that feels personal.
And Desiree, I'll frame it to you. You represent the enterprise side on this panel. If Matt and Bashir are sort of platforms, two is agency, your enterprise. And so your focus broadly would fall into customer retention as well as customer acquisition in terms of the aspects that really rely on measurement and targeting. So from a targeting standpoint, in a cookieless ecosystem, some of those abilities may be mitigated or removed. How do you deal with that in those two retention and acquisition aspects?
Yeah, well, I think for each of them, it's different technology, it's different targeting strategies. It's built off of a common data layer. Kind of building off of what's already been said, I strongly believe that cookies, we shouldn't be reliant on them anymore. We're 7 years down this path, and cookies are already gone, and we've sort of just accepted that with Safari and Firefox and leaned into where the scale is, which is on Google, but we're leaving opportunity on the table. So we need to invest in infrastructure that allows us to gain some of that back. We definitely need to stay the course. Obviously, I think that it starts with first party and your addressable strategies, which is the customer bucket of targeting. And you build a really solid foundation there, and then you build off of that and you learn off of that. One area, as we've been building our roadmaps and talking to vendors and evaluating the marketplace, the prospecting side, I think, still needs some maturity. That's where you're looking at your predictive targeting strategies. And those are just more recently becoming part of the conversation. But as AI advances, I see that that'll advance as well. So I think right now the focus should be durable data assets to build off of.
And Matt, if we look at the two sort of frameworks enabled by cookies, you have targeting in one sort of bucket, you've got measurement in another bucket. For a platform like yours, as well as for marketers everywhere, measurement is a key component as well. What do you see as the biggest impact to measurement? What are the challenges from a measurement standpoint in this era?
Hate to beat a dead horse, but first-party data. I think and stable identifiers, being able to have a fair value exchange with customers to be able to collect the data. I think we've seen with Facebook that an API capable of ingesting first-party data is very effective, even in a world where third-party tracking doesn't work. So I think it's a commitment from brands to have that value exchange, to be able to collect the data and then use the data. And of course, there's other methods of measurement and attribution that don't fully rely on cookies, which will become more and more prevalent again. But again, I think the core really is having that first-party data, being able to build an identity graph, probably in partnership with platforms, to be able to activate that data, to be able to drive outcomes. But it's first-party data.
Bashir, from Matt mentioned stable identifiers. In your world, that's one component of solving for challenges like measurement and targeting. Can you touch on what exactly that means to a marketer, that you're responsible for building technology that serves and enables?
That's right. So I think, as everybody mentioned here, we see the demise of third-party cookies and the rise of some alternative identifiers that help you stitch some of the prospecting universe together. But as Matt said, I think we're going to see a much larger rise in both the first-party capture on the brand side. And I think a lot of brands are going to invest time on capturing more zero-party data. That's data that consumers are willingly exchanging with the brand for a value exchange that makes their relationship with the brand closer, more personalizable, and they get unique values out of it. So I think focusing on that and having a blended approach that brings all of it into a uniform addressability, and that's some of the work that we've done at Zeta is really make that complex universe of multiple different identifiers and first party and third party and alternative IDs, and really narrowing it down to a unified addressability scheme that you can then meld your paid and owned media channels together, come up with your consistent measurement framework, and be able to iterate and learn from it.
Ritu, we're talking a lot about measurement and targeting. Even in a world where all the cookies in the world exist, say they exist on Safari, we have perfect tracking as far as device level goes. When it comes to upper funnel, CTV, audio, even digital out of home, measurement is always a challenge because it can't be tracked the same way. You buy on those channels, you're involved with marketing programs in all of those channels. How are you solving that for clients today? What informs your calculus when it comes to investing in the upper funnel?
Yeah, more and more investment is going there, as we all know. And the interesting thing is measurement is still going to be a challenge. But the way we have been looking at it, let's say MMMs give us a little bit of that picture in terms of the channels and the contribution to sales for some of these upper funnel channels. But at the same time, doing some incrementality testing and trying to get that holistic view. Similarly, if these channels are all about branding, also getting that performance measurement today and being able to stitch that together and get more of a holistic view. And where possible, if we have first-party data and being able to get household purchase as well as match that to who's viewing your ads on these upper funnel channels, also allows us to build. But we're stitching a lot of these things together. The future is where, in fact, when cookies go away, these channels are actually the ones that are going to win. They're the ones who are doing collecting data and targeting in a way that is more privacy safe. So these upper funnel channels actually have more of an opportunity to get a larger share of our investment. And as measurement gets better, I think we'll be able to prove out their contribution to sales even further.
Desiree, do you see your channel shift changing with the reduction in tracking ability or the hampering to really understand as well as before how your dollars are working? Would you invest more in the upper funnel? How do you think about that?
I think that they go hand in hand. As you're less reliant on cookies and more reliant on durability, you're naturally going to shift your investment toward where you're getting a read. So yeah, I think that they go hand in hand. And I think the industry as a whole is leaning more into CTV and more upper funnel things because, as Ritu mentioned, they have the household data and the durability. I
hear and feel Matt wanting to jump in and defend sort of the trackable traditional channels, since Matt doesn't quite represent the upper funnel the way we're speaking about it. Matt, in defense of mobile and web, what do you have to say?
I think it is important to probably, obviously reach customers across as many channels or omni-channel. And again, if you're able to actually match it back to who's actually converting, right? If you're using MMM, not so much, but for incrementality, right? You have to know who's in your control and who's your holdout. Mm-hmm. So I think, and what's going to happen, who knows, right? We're in a place where, Google hasn't said, are they going to do the same, global opt-out or global opt-in where the language is such that 80 or 90% of consumers opt out? Or are they going to do something more similar to what Apple did with apps and, treat every brand as it should be, differently? And I think in that case, you'd see a ton of difference in actually outcomes and who actually opts in and who doesn't. So I think for brands, it's really going to be about, can you communicate the value of why you're trading your zero-party data, how you're connecting it, and then just essentially measuring across the entire funnel. And I think the good news is last click, which we all know is extraordinarily flawed, will probably be the first type of measurement to go. But at the same time, I think it's probably good that we're going to watch brands measure across more holistically using different types of measurement.
Yeah.
Ritu, you hear from a lot of clients in your day-to-day. If we zoom out outside of the or above the sort of geeking out speak, what are you hearing? What are they saying, particularly the ones who aren't quite as sophisticated when it comes to these matters?
I think two things. One, when you talk to clients in different categories, thinking about their first-party assets, it is quite challenging, right? For some categories like pharma, healthcare, finance, much easier to have that conversation with your consumer and collect that information, have a pretty rich first-party asset. For clients like a candy company, much harder to have that conversation and build your own first-party asset. So I think clients are in their own journey trying to understand what they have a right to have, what they don't have a right to have, how do they build that if they don't have a right. So that is one conversation, I would say, just trying to understand the opportunity. The second one I would say is internally within their organizations. This is not just a marketing conversation, right? This impacts the entire organization, and people need to get behind a vision because this requires investment, privacy conversation, compliance conversations. I'm sure the CFOs are looking over their shoulders on all the investments we're making, their consumer insights team. Like, this is transforming and disrupting a lot of the things we're currently doing. So education is really important, and working with our clients to be their true partners to say, where do you need the help? Who do you need to convince? Can we do some experimentations to really help you build the opportunity and show and very deterministically that this is the opportunity and this is something we can't take our eyes off, I think is very, very critical. So being a true partner in this journey, I would say, is where, and it's not one size fits all for every client.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned finance, Desiree, you have internal clients, Ritu has external clients, but in your world, you're responsible for growing and helping your internal stakeholders understand how the company's marketing dollars are working. So on a broad level, have you been having to do a lot of educating? How do you respond and field questions when they may not care about measurement challenges? All they want is to see the growth.
Yeah. Well, if you're not in this, I think you don't care about a cookie. You may not even realize what last touch is and what the limitations of it are. So it's a conversation that continues to happen and will continue to happen. And it's only successful if you first break it down into terms that make sense from a business perspective, something we can all understand and relate to, and then you keep the conversation very data-driven and you're quantifying what is the risk, what is the opportunity, and just making sure that you stay anchored on that throughout the process.
Bashir, we talked about needing to both parallel path, even though it's not quite, people aren't quite on the ledge that they were on prior to Google's announcement. Where do you see the future from here in the next couple of years as we work to both mitigate a cookieless, potentially cookieless future, or at least a seriously hampered one from a consumer opt-out standpoint?
Yeah, good question. I think as Matt said, Google changes will likely have some sort of impact on a consumer-driven, like reduction in sort of third-party cookies. And as Desiree mentioned, you got to be thinking beyond cookies. And again, you got to adapt your measurement methodologies to work at a people level across your channels, across your touch points. Because you have real people out there that they're interacting with your brand through all these different channels, and you're kind of having a very narrow view, and you can't connect it all together. When you connect it, a lot of efficiencies come out of it. And I think with the advent of AI, and as our chief data officer says, it's really reducing the distance between data and impactful actions. And we're going to see that reduce more and more in the next, I think, 2 to 3 years. That you're going to be able to experiment a lot more and get results that you can connect it all together through platforms like CDPs and Zeta marketing platform to bring it all together, have a 360 view of consumers, and really improve your strategies on acquisition and retention.
Matt, if you put your futurist hat on, where do you see things going?
Well, I think there's no question that consumers are going to have more choice, and I think that's a good thing. When I read the announcement from Google, I sort of took a step back and pinched myself and went, oh my gosh, right? Isn't this the way it should have always been? Consumers should be given choice. I want to have a relationship with my bank, Citibank, Capital One, random website that I, purchase something late night once. I don't want to have a relationship with. So I think the future will be, I hope, the government's not making decisions about privacy for me. Monopolies aren't making decisions about my decisions for privacy. I'll be given that choice. I personally do like targeted ads. I'd much prefer to see something I might want to buy, or maybe something from a website I did visit, than random advertisements.
Nobody
So-
loves ads more than the people in this building right now.
So, I think we're headed in a good direction. I think what Google's doing is sort of, it seems obvious in retrospect. I can't believe that, Apple, Safari, others have gotten away with making decisions for us. It's wrong.
Well, that's a perfect capstone on our conversation. Thank you to the panelists for being with us. It's going to be an interesting future, but I'm sure the industry will figure it out. And thank you all for attending.
Okay.
Thank you.